Right, it's 9 o'clock. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our last rules webinar of the year. Before I turn it over to Alice and Clark, just a few quick things. If everyone can if everyone can please remain muted throughout the call so there isn't any background noise, that's much appreciated. There's a button at the bottom of your screen. It's a rectangle with an up arrow. Please do not click on that, as that will interrupt Alice's presentation. If you have any technical issues, please put those into the chat feature and I'll do my best to help you through those. Just be aware a lot of times those issues stem from your own Wi-Fi or internet connections. If you have any questions throughout the presentations, please put those into the chat feature as well, and we'll prompt the presenters as needed. If anyone is dialed in via telephone today, please send me an email at mfrey@pgahq.com. That way we'll make sure you get your MSR credits. And we are recording today's webinar, so it will be up on our YouTube channel shortly thereafter. You can either just search on YouTube for Philadelphia PGA, or it's currently up on our homepage right now as well to take a look at all of our webinar archives. So before we turn it over to Ms. Miller, I think Clark has a little song prepared for us again. Clark, take it away.
Thank you. Yes, I do. And here's one that we used to sing along with the Pledge of Allegiance when I was a boy. And I'm sure you'll all remember it. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the Pilgrim's pride, from every mountain side, let freedom ring.
Well done, Clark. And
thank you, Clark.
Thanks.
So we'll go ahead and turn it over to Miss Alice Miller, Major Champion.
You keep saying that, Matt. That was many, many moons ago, but thank you. Are you seeing my screen okay? Do we have Rule 18 up so everybody can see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. What I thought we'd do, because I didn't get to this last time, is I'm going to try to expeditiously go through Rules 18 and 19, which are the last two of our penalty relief rules. And then Clark's going to jump up to Rule 23 and go over 4-ball, because I know, well, number one, it's a great fun competition to play. We use that format a lot at our facilities, and he's going to cover that. Then we'll try to squeeze in Rule 20, which is about resolving issues that happen during the round, both in match play and stroke play, if we have time, or we might just go to questions and answers. So I know there's things that we haven't covered in these presentations, so if you all have questions, please feel free to bring those up at the end. All right, let's jump into Rule 18, stroke and distance relief, ball lost or out of bounds. Here's our little overview. We're going to have a little purpose statement. And this is pretty straightforward. You guys will probably be very familiar. There's maybe a couple nuances to look at here. And it's going to cover when when you can take relief under penalty of stroke and distance. Sometimes you have to, other times you're allowed to. But the philosophy behind this is that if a ball is lost or out of bounds, the required progression of playing from the tee area to the hole has been broken, and you got to resume that progression by going back to where you last played from. It's going to talk about provisional ball. That can get a little bit interesting, so we'll go over that too. All right, this was something that when I first started studying the rules, and I had played for a long time, for whatever reason, it didn't occur to me that at any time I could take stroke and distance relief. Didn't matter where I was or what had happened. You can always go back and add one penalty stroke and play from where you previously played from. You can substitute a ball, obviously, during all the relief procedures we can substitute, but it never occurred to me as a player, I guess because, stroke and distance was something you didn't want to do unless you were forced to. So this tricked me on the exam the first time that I took it. It just didn't quite sink in. But at any time, at any place on the golf course, a player can take stroke and distance relief. They've always got that option, no matter where the ball is. It can be any one of the 5 areas of the course. You're always going to have that option. I guess the teen area wouldn't need it. Even if the rules require you to take relief in a certain way or play from a certain place. And here we have a drop zone for this part probably for this TV tower or this bleacher, whatever, this temporary movable obstruction, maybe that's a mandatory drop zone if you're in the TIO. Over here, we have an environmentally sensitive area. We now call those no play zones. So even though they have their special spots where they want you to drop, if you don't like that, you can always go back under stroke and distance. Original ball is not going to be in play. If you put another ball into play under stroke and distance, even if you haven't announced it, if that's how you're operating, the original ball is no longer in play and must not be played. Hey, just found your second ball. It's over here. Too late. This player, as we're going to see, did not announce that she was hitting a provisional. She just played under stroke and distance, okay? That ball's in play. The other ball is now a wrong ball. And here's our little slide that says this doesn't apply if the player has properly announced that they're going to play a provisional. And we will look at that when we get to 18.3. Other two scenarios, these are in stroke play only. If you're playing a second ball in stroke play because you've played from the wrong place, you don't know if it's a serious breach, in stroke play, you're allowed to play a second ball. And also, and we'll see this if we do get to Rule 20, in stroke play only, if you're not sure how to proceed under the rules, you're allowed to play a second ball, and there's a procedure for that. But those two second ball scenarios only apply to stroke play. And those are not your balls in play yet. They may be, but they are not yet. Okay, that's stroke and distance. That's pretty straightforward. Now, here's what we're really familiar with. If the ball's lost, the only way a ball can be lost is to not be found in 3 minutes. Player cannot declare the ball lost. So it's lost if it's not found in 3 minutes after the player or his or her caddy begins to search for it. If the ball's found in that time, but it's uncertain whether it's the player's ball or not, the player must promptly attempt to identify the ball. Hey, I think this might be your ball. So the player, is supposed to go and try to identify it. Allowed a reasonable time to do so, even if that happens after the 3-minute search time is ended. So person finds it within 3 minutes. Maybe the player is searching back over here in the trees. Hey, I found it here. There's time for this player to come and identify it, even though the 3 minutes was up. If the player does not identify his or her ball in that reasonable time, the ball is lost. So this is different than saying, I'm not going to look at all. If this person's looking and they found a ball, and as long as the player has not hit their provisional yet, they are required to come over and try to identify it. Now, if the player thinks that, I'm better served searching up here because I think that's where my ball is, they don't have to come and identify it. If they're searching elsewhere, that's okay. Ball's out of bounds. Again, this should be pretty familiar, only when all of it is outside the boundary edge of the course. And this is a nice little diagram that shows that. Whether you're using stakes, and we have the course side edge of the stakes at ground level, any part of the ball is touching or inside that line. Again, this is also a vertical plane, so any part of the ball breaks that plane, we're fine. If we're using a white line, any part of the ball that's on the course side of the line is fine. I had a player one time in Toledo, got called to a ruling, and I drove up, and it was my good friend Colleen Walker, who's no longer with us, and she said, please tell me my ball is in bounds. Well, she was between the stakes, and it looked like it was going to be out of bounds. And I said, I've got to get the string out. I said, but I think it's out. It's going to be really close. She thought that the edge was the out of bounds side edge. We were using stakes, and her ball was straddling just like this ball, but only so when we put the string down, it was like one dimple was in bounds, but that ball was in bounds. So it's the course side edge at ground level. Remember what we said about stakes and lines? They're part of what they define. So the stakes that are defining out of bounds are actually out of bounds, and the line that's defining out of bounds is actually out of bounds. Okay, it's in bounds when any part of it lies on or touches the ground or anything else that's inside the boundary edge. And here's our graphic. I spoke a little too soon, just showing that the boundary edge does go up and down. So even if the ball's, up in a tree, as long as that tree is in, ball's in bounds if it's inside that imaginary plane of glass, any part of it. A reminder that player can stand out of bounds to play a ball on the course. That's not a problem. So what do we do? If the ball's lost or out of bounds, here's where we must take stroke and distance relief. One penalty stroke, go back to where the previous stroke was made. If it was in the teeing area, we know that we have all the teeing area permissions at our disposal. General area or penalty area where the ball was, and we're going to have that one club length relief area to drop in, and on the putting green, we're going to place it. Jeff did a nice job of going over that when we looked at Rule 14.6. And the exception here, these are these things that rarely happen, but it's possible. So if the player has knowledge or virtual certainty that the ball is lost somewhere else, it's not lost, you can't find it within 3 minutes, but you've seen somebody run off with it. I had a spectator walk off with a ball one time. Unfortunately, there were witnesses that saw it. Otherwise, my ball would have been lost. We've actually seen the ball go into the little outhouse building. We've seen, or we have knowledge or virtual certainty the ball's in a penalty area. We're going to, proceed under that rule. And the last one is when a ball is intentionally deflected or stopped. So in those cases, even though the ball is not found, we can proceed under those rules. That's all that exception is telling us. They call this the virtual certainty 4, but it's actually 6. And I'm not going to go through those, but you can look that up if you want a reminder of that. But that knowledge or virtual certainty that the ball is lost for one of those reasons, we can proceed accordingly. Penalty statement, playing from a wrong place, general penalty. And then when it comes to, this is just a little reminder, this little box, that any penalty strokes that you get for taking relief, such as the 1-stroke penalty we're talking about for stroke and distance, is always applied in addition to any other penalties. At this point in the presentations for the big rules, we haven't seen it as much in our presentations, they refer back to Rule 1.3C4, which is that volume discount rule that says you can combine, if you mess up doing multiple things, especially procedural breaches, you combine that into one penalty. And what we're trying to do here is just remind folks that penalty strokes are not, those 1-stroke penalties are different than procedural penalties, and they do not get the volume discount. All right, here we have our little question. We'll go through this pretty quickly. We're looking for a false statement. After playing from the teeing area, no matter where a player's ball is on the course, she is not always allowed to play her ball as it lies, but can always play under stroke and distance. And we know that. That's true. The player can always play under stroke and distance. Player drops a ball in the general area after saying she's going to play under stroke and distance. Okay, so she said she's playing under stroke and distance. If her original ball is found before the end of her 3-minute search, she can abandon the drop ball. No, she can't. If she had said she was playing a provisional, that's okay, but not in this case. If a ball is found with less than 10 seconds remaining on a player's search time, she is not near where the ball is found, allowed a reasonable time to get to the ball and identify it, even if that happens after the 3-minute search. That is correct. And if a player plays under stroke and distance from a wrong place, the penalty in match play is loss of hole, and in stroke play is 3 penalty strokes. And we're not used to seeing a statement that says 3 penalty strokes. So when you see this on the exam, you go, oh, that sounds odd. But yes, one of the strokes is for the stroke and distance, and the other 2 are for playing from a wrong place. So there's our false statement, looking for the false statement there. Any questions on that? Just let Matt know. I'm going to dive right into provisional ball.
Yeah, Alice. John had a scenario to run by you. A player hits his tee shot into the bushes. A rules official finds the ball in the bushes while the player is walking from the tee. While walking towards the area where the ball was hit, he tells the rules official not to look for the ball. Is the player obligated to attempt to identify the ball found by the rules official?
Yes, they are. And I think that's going to come up. I think that's going to come up later in this part of the presentation. And the answer to that is yes. You cannot, if someone has found your ball, you cannot decline to go identify it. And we had that happen at the NC2As at Karsten Creek a couple of years ago. We had areas that, they were not penalty areas. They were just bad country. And the coaches and players, everybody knew that, please hit a provisional if you're not sure you're going to be able to find it. And then on the really bad ones, we had a volunteer, and we said, don't look for the ball unless the player wants to look. Well, I got called to one ruling, and a parent from the group ahead, obviously following a different team, saw this player's ball go in the junk, and he went and promptly found it. So then that player did have to try to identify it. And you can ask, but they don't have to comply. That's a great question. I think that is going to come up in a slide, but that doesn't seem right to me. I want to be able to declare my ball lost and go on, but the rules do not allow us to declare the ball lost. We can either hit our provisional, hopefully quicker than somebody can find the ball in the junk, or we have to go identify it. Good question. All right, provisional ball is another ball played just in case that first ball might be out of bounds or lost outside of a penalty area. It's not going to be the ball in play. It's going to be, I think David Stabler calls it a twilight ball or a TBD ball. It's not in play unless it becomes in play. We're going to see how that happens. The rule just goes on to kind of reiterate what we just saw in the definition. And it's to save time. It's to save time so that, and we really encourage players to do this, especially juniors, college players, at any event, really. You want to encourage the players to do this. And it's strictly to save time. It's not so you can get in another practice shot because you didn't like how you hit the first one. And something that was new after 2019 is that you can play a provisional even after the search has started. So maybe, we've hit and I hit over into the woods and we're starting to walk forward and we're up the fairway a little ways. And I say, Clarky, you know what? I'm going to go back and hit a provisional in case I can't find that one. I can go back and play a provisional, even if I've already started to go forward to search, or even if I've already started searching, if there's some time left on the search. Okay, the original has not been found yet and identified and is not yet lost. Might be lost. And I like this slide because it shows that, just because there's a penalty area nearby doesn't preclude us from hitting a provisional. So the original ball might be in the penalty area, but it also might be in these woods over here. So as long as it might also be lost somewhere else besides that penalty area, the player is entitled to play a provisional. When you're not allowed to play a provisional is if the player is aware that the only possible place the original ball could be lost is in the penalty area. So this is a long par 3. Player hits it long left over this bunker, and this is just a bank that goes down to the penalty area. It's not heavy grass. There's no place to lose the ball. And the player knows that if the ball didn't stay on the bank, it's going to be in the penalty area. But in other words, it's not going to be lost, but they want to make another swing. No, even though they announce they're going to play a provisional, this is a cool little nuance. The rules say that the provisional is not allowed. And the ball that was played from where the previous stroke was made becomes the ball in play under stroke and distance. So that's a nice deterrent for players not to use the provisional as an extra practice stroke to straighten out their swing. Now here's where it gets tricky. If the provisional itself might be lost outside a penalty or out of bounds, the player may play another provisional. And that provisional has the same relationship to the first provisional as the first one has to the original ball. This is kind of like who's on first, what's on second. But each ball, this interpretation tells us each ball relates only to the previous ball when it's played from that same spot. Okay? If you keep that in your mind, usually you can kind of keep it straight. All right, we know that before the stroke is made, before you play the provisional, the player is going to have to announce it. Here, this player is saying, I'm playing a provisional. Can't get any more straightforward than that. It's not enough just to say that you're going to play another ball, or hey, I'm playing again. That's not good enough. You can either use the word provisional. I like this one. I don't know anybody that would do this. You can clearly indicate that you're going to play a provisional under Rule 18.3. I even asked David Stabler. I said, David, even you wouldn't say that, would you? And he said no. So, but you're making it clear that you're proceeding under 18.3, which is the provisional rule. This is a nice interpretation. It has some examples of things that are okay. Again, playing under 18.3, you can really get your buddies on that one. Or I'm going to play another just in case. And I like that. The interesting about that one is, obviously saying I'm going to reload doesn't count. But I'm going to play another just in case is fine. I'm going to play another is not. That's not sufficient information, because I'm going to play another. You might just be going to play another under stroke and distance. I always tried to say provisional, or I would say I'm going to play another in case I can't find that one. So the just in case is okay. Just I'm going to play another is not a clear announcement. One other thing about it, the announcement, and I don't think this is in the slides because I tried to edit some out. It has to be, there might not, if Clarky and I have started forward, now maybe I tell him, Clarky, I'm going back to hit a provisional. But if I decide to hit a provisional, say we've all teed off and everybody's starting to walk ahead, and I think, boy, I better hit a provisional, but there's nobody around to hear it. That's okay, as long as once I get up there, I say, hey, that was a provisional. That's different too. That's new. That's not likely going to happen because your group's not going to walk off the tee without you. But you just have to make the announcement, and you have to make it once somebody is within earshot. Okay, we're going to look at some scenarios about when it becomes the ball in play or if it has to be abandoned. And this is going to be pretty familiar. These little graphics are pretty good. They can get a little overwhelming, but I think they're pretty good. You can always continue to play the provisional ball without it losing its status as a provisional, as long as it's played from a spot the same distance or farther from the hole than where the original ball is estimated to be. So it doesn't matter where, the original ball might be somewhere else, but if this is where everybody's estimated it to be in this clump of trees, now you can continue to play your provisional until you get closer to the hole than that point. So yes, this one is still a provisional. It's outside of that radius of being near the hole. Second stroke, the ball on the green is still a provisional at this point until it gets played. All right. Little interpretation that helps us understand this. This rule uses a spot where the player estimates his or her ball that's not yet found to be. And so the estimated spot is not where the original ball ends up being found necessarily. It's true even if the provisional is played several times. You hit the bad one, hitting a provisional, you're upset, duff it. Ball on the green is still a provisional at this point until it's abandoned or has to go into play. Stops being a provisional ball and becomes a ball in play. We're going to look at that next. And once it's abandoned, it becomes a wrong ball. Okay, two scenarios, two cases where it becomes a ball in play. The other ball is lost anywhere on the course except in the penalty area. We search for more than 3 minutes. We get to 3 minutes and boom, that's the point of finality. Original ball is lost. Now the provisional ball immediately clicks into the ball in play. If the original ball is out of bounds, it's no longer in play. The provisional is immediately in play. Once you play a provisional ball from a spot near the hole, then where the original is estimated to be, the original ball, which hadn't been found yet when the provisional was played, is no longer in play. Now the original ball becomes a wrong ball. Can't play it anymore. This one can get a little tricky with people. Oh, I found it. Oh, okay. No. Okay, no longer, even though it's been found after that provisional was played, you cannot go back and play your original ball. And this is an interesting scenario. If it's found near the hole that had been estimated, this player might think, oh, okay, when I hit that second shot with the provisional, I really wasn't near the hole. But it doesn't matter where the ball ends up being found. It's where it was estimated. It's the knowledge you had at the time where you estimated it to be is what matters when deciding whether the provisional must be abandoned or not. Here's the answer to the question. If a player does not plan to, this was the earlier question, does not plan to search for his or her original ball because you prefer to play with a provisional, which you've hit right down the middle, you can ask others not to search, but there's no obligation for them to comply. And if a ball is found that might be the player's original ball, the player must make all reasonable efforts to identify the ball. And this goes on to say, when another ball is found, a refusal to make a reasonable effort to identify the ball may be found to be considered serious misconduct contrary to the spirit of the game under Rule 1.2a. So yes, you have to go make an effort to identify it. There could be some, when they used to do these presentations, they had, some discussions about, match play, there could be a real foot race. Your opponent wants to find your ball in the woods versus having you play the provisional that's up on the green. And there are actually some good interpretations that speak to that. If you guys want some good 19th hole stories, you can look those interpretations up. Search time when you're searching for two balls. This is going to be kind of common sense. If they're in the same area where they can be searched for at the same time, you're only allowed that single 3-minute search for both balls. However, if the balls are in different areas, maybe opposite sides of the fairway, you're allowed a 3-minute search for each ball. And you would start with your original ball, search for 3 minutes, can't find it, now you can go search for the provisional. And this is just a good public service announcement to say, always put an identifying mark on your ball that's different. If you've marked all your balls with a little red dot, put an extra red dot on your provisional, because if you've hit a provisional in the same general location, and you're unable to identify which ball is which, yeah, if only one of them is found on the course, that ball is treated as the provisional, which is now in play. If both balls are found on the course, you have a small consolation prize that you get to choose which one's in play, but the other one's considered lost and must not be played. So really, especially with your juniors, high school players, really get them to put an identifying mark on. And mark each provisional differently. I had a local amateur tournament a few years ago that this poor player, I got called to a ruling, and she had hit a ball, it was at Deerfield, so you can imagine, ball over into the deep junk in the woods, played a provisional properly. That was in the same area. It got flustered, hit another ball. I think she declared that one a provisional, but she didn't mark it differently, and then hit one that she didn't declare. She had 5 balls out there at one point, and needless to say, she went on to make a very big score because she got flustered and didn't continue to mark. The ball we found was either the third or fourth provisional, and we couldn't be sure. So identifying mark. Here again are these situations. You can always, if your provisional, if you played a provisional for a ball that might be lost, and you come to find out one of these 4 circumstances.
Don't pick it up. Oh, what are they doing? No.
Yeah, so a nice little souvenir for the kids. And if they ran off with that ball, everybody saw that, you're allowed to play under a different rule. Again, lost in the abnormal course condition, deliberately deflected or stopped. Then we're going to be able to go ahead and proceed under Rule 11.2. Or you can treat the provisional as the ball in play. I'm not sure why anyone would do this, but you could. If these balls are actually by definition lost, and you could treat the provisional ball as a ball in play. When it must be abandoned. Either of these 2 cases. First one's obvious. The original ball is found within the 3-minute search time. Must abandon the provisional, as much as you might hate to do so. And we get this question sometimes, it's like, do I have to go back now? I'm going to, I can't play from here. My unplayable options, the only one that really is going to help me is to go back under stroke and distance. Can I play my provisional? And the answer is no. Once the original is found, that provisional becomes a wrong ball. And when I missed number 2 here. Found in a penalty area, 2 and 3 are kind of similar. Now you've got to abandon the provisional, play the original as it lies, or get out using the penalty relief in Rule 17. And number 3 is kind of related to that. If it's known or virtually certain to be in the penalty area, this player, there's no place else it could be. There's short rough going right up to the edge of the red line. You have to use the penalty area relief rule, Rule 17. Again, just a reminder, don't make any more strokes with the provisional ball. It has become a wrong ball. And now you're going to be in some serious penalty territory. And again, all strokes made with the provisional before it was abandoned do not count. And when it says any penalty stroke solely from playing that ball, that's usually going to be the case. You might have done something else that affects both balls, ask for advice or something, but it's unlikely. Wrong place, general penalty. Again, a reminder that the 1-stroke penalty relief is always added to the wrong place, so it ends up being 3 strokes if you're trying to, add it up on an exam, or a player comes to you, whether it's a member or a guest, and says, I did this on this hole. What did I score? I can't, add it up. And we'll just go through this quick. Which of one of the following second balls announced as a provisional by the player and then played is in play under stroke and distance and not a provisional? I'm going to skip through this quickly. It's the one that the player played because they know if they didn't find the original, it'll be in a penalty area. And if it's not in the penalty area, it would have been found in the fairway. That's the same situation we saw with the player on the long par 3. And the main thing on the provisional, again, is, boy, if you get multiple provisionals in going on in a bad situation, hopefully your players that you're coaching, or if it happens to you, you just have the presence of mind to mark them all with a separate identifying mark. All right, unplayable ball. Go through this one pretty quickly. Little purpose statement, 3 parts to this rule. Going to cover all the options for an unplayable. Player gets to choose. It says normally 1 stroke. They used to always be 1 stroke, but we do have our unplayable in a bunker now that lets us get out for 2. We'll take a look at that. Oh, and just back to this too. To get out of a difficult situation anywhere on the course except in a penalty area. Just reminding us, and we'll see this again in the rule, there's no such thing as being able to take an unplayable in a penalty area. You look at the different places we're going to take the unplayable. The player that is the only person who can decide that the ball is unplayable. They can say that at any time. If they're in a penalty area, they can't. But it's not for someone else to say. My ball could sit in the middle of the fairway, and if I want to declare it unplayable, I'm allowed to do that. The 2 rules we're going to look at gives us the relief options for the general area and the putting green, and then 19.3 for the bunker, which we have that new relief option. It's not that new. It's 3 years old now, or 4. Okay, this is the rule itself, just kind of reiterating what we saw in the purpose statement. It's allowed anywhere on the course except in a penalty area. So keep that in mind. I've had players ask if they could take an unplayable in a penalty area before, believe it or not. And I had one ask that it was at the tour level at a qualifying school, so they weren't quite at tour level, but no such thing in a penalty area. Only relief option, as I said before when we went under Rule 17, you can play your way out of a penalty area, or you can take penalty relief under the Rule 17 options. Those are your only ways to get out. All right, let's look at for a ball that's unplayable in the general area or on the putting green. Got our 3 options. They're all 1-strokers. Always have stroke and distance. Don't have to find the original ball to use stroke and distance. But just a reminder that if we're taking back on the line relief or lateral relief option, we have to find the original ball, because that's, in the case of the lateral relief, that's going to be our reference point. And in the case of the back on the line relief, we need the spot of the original ball to establish our reference line. So have to find the ball in those 2 cases. Stroke and distance relief, just a reminder, you go back where the previous stroke was made, and this little graphic shows where that would be with these different areas of the course. Should be pretty familiar by now. Back on the line, going to have a reference line going straight back from the hole through the original spot or the original ball. You're going to choose the reference point. Pretty familiar with this. Should indicate with a T, ideally. If you do it without having chosen, the rule is going to choose it for you. We've seen that before. Back on the line relief is always going to be 1 club length, not near the hole. It can be in any area of the course. When you're taking unplayable, you can drop in any area of the course. And if more than one area of the course is within that 1 club length, this is that situation where the ball must come to rest in the same area that the ball first touched when it was dropped. Lateral relief is one of the 2 times that we get 2 club lengths, whether it's lateral relief for unplayable or for penalty area. Again, we have to have the original ball because we need to have that spot as our reference point. 2 club lengths. Has some limits, not near the hole. Any area of the course again. And if more than one area is within the 2 club lengths, the ball is going to need to come to rest in the relief area that it first touched or first dropped into. And well, you'll get some of your juniors, beginners, just people that maybe don't play under the rules a lot, and they think that when they take their unplayable, if their ball rolls back into that condition, they get to drop again because they're used to the free relief procedures like cart path and all that. Well, no. Choose your dropping area carefully. All right, here's what happens when the ball's up in a tree, for instance. If a player's ball lies above the ground, bush or a tree, you can use the lateral relief option. You use the point on the ground directly below the spot of the ball as the reference point, okay? And then you get your 2 club length relief area with all the same things that we just looked at. And in some cases, this might allow a ball to be dropped on a putting green. It's one of the few cases where a ball might actually be dropped on a putting green. The other one would possibly be if there was a penalty area really close to the green, red line was close and the angle with the hole location was such. And I don't know, Mark or Clark if you guys can think of another, but those are the only two that come to mind. Okay. Again, always have to give the 1 stroke penalty relief in addition to the wrong place. We'll go ahead through this question real quick. Which one of the following is false in stroke play when a player takes Rule 19.2 relief? So now we're looking at stroke play. Player takes unplayable relief, but in a wrong place and plays the ball. The penalty is 3 strokes, 1 for taking unplayable relief and 2 more for playing from the wrong place. That looks true. If a serious breach of playing from the wrong place is involved in taking Rule 19.2 relief, the player must correct that error by playing the original ball or another ball from a correct place. Yeah, that's true. The player plays from a wrong place, but it's not a serious breach when taking Rule 19.2 relief. The player must play out the hole with the ball played from the wrong place. And the stroke made from a wrong place. I'm sorry, my question, I can't read the last part of the question. That is the correct answer. So now it pops up. Stroke made from a wrong place after incorrectly taking relief, and any subsequent strokes never count in the player's score. So we're looking for the false statement. It is possible that you played from the wrong place. It's not a serious breach. That could very well count. Okay, last part of this rule is relief options in a bunker. We have our 1 stroke relief option. And they all have to, well, you can always go where you last played from outside the bunker as your first option. And then if you're going to use the lateral relief option or the back on the line relief for 1 stroke, you just have to stay in the bunker. We're pretty familiar with that. And this was the one that was new in 2019. And I think this is, is it helpful for your maybe beginners and new players to know this? Yes. But if you want them to learn how to play out of bunkers, maybe not. But if they're in a tournament and they just can't get out of the bunker, for a total of 2 penalty strokes, you can always have back on the line relief and go outside the bunker. If your bunker play is really tough, you still have to negotiate the bunker. You still have to, because it's back on the line, you still have to go over the bunker. But for 2 penalty strokes, now you can go and take back on the line relief. Good option to know. Again, going to always add those penalty strokes to the wrong place if you're in stroke play. All right. Clarky, that's all I have for those rules. I know I went over those a little bit quickly, but hopefully that's, let me get out of this.
Okay.
And I'm going to stop presenting.
All right.
And I'll let you.
All right. Matt, tell me what to do here.
Do you already have the PowerPoint open?
I don't.
Okay. Tell you what, so before you go onto the next screen, at the bottom of your screen, there should be a rectangle with a up arrow.
Yes.
Okay, click that. And then hit present now.
And your entire screen?
Yeah, that'll probably be easiest.
Yeah, I need to get the screen bigger than it was right in this last one. Now I'm going to click on this one up here.
I can't see what you're doing yet.
Yeah,
is there a button that says share now?
Yeah, I did remember that. Okay, that's good.
There we go.
Now, okay, good.
So now you can go into your PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah. That's sorry, gang. It's taking me a little too long.
Yeah, take your time, Clarky. Give people a chance to refill their coffee.
This is more nervous than a 4-foot putt. Or in my case, a 1-foot putt. Okay, here we go. We're going to go.
Believe me, we've all been there. For both the putt and the computer stuff.
So now I'm going to do, well, I'll go to slideshow first.
Yep.
Okay, I don't know why. Let's just tell me not now. Get away from me. Slideshow. And I don't want to go from current slide. I want to go, first I'd like to make it, all right. I want to go for, I got to get to slide 37, I guess. You
can see the little scroll bar.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. You can scroll down to 37.
All right.
And if you open your slideshow and then you just put in 37, enter, it'll pop to that slide too.
Well, I'm afraid to do any of that.
From David Stabler. I was having trouble finding the right slide.
Am I right?
You're down to 86 already.
I went too far. Okay, here we go. Where am I at? 16. I want to get to 27, I believe.
Yeah, there's 27 there.
Or maybe it's more. I'm sorry. Maybe it's.
That's okay. We could cover foursomes too, but
Whoop.
for the sake of time. Oh, there you go.
Okay. So that's where I want to be.
Yeah, hit that. Just click on it.
Okay.
And then you can do from current slide at the top.
Okay. Wow. From current slide. All right.
Perfect.
Oh, good.
Clarky, when we only do it once a year, they get what they get.
I could do it every day. I'm taking that Prevagen now, and as long as I can remember to take it, I'm in good shape. Okay, so I got a thing on here that says hide. I guess with that little, which I think I can hit.
Yeah, you can hit hide. That's fine.
All right, so we're gonna dive into Rule 23, and I can see this beautifully now, so that's good. And what are we going to do? This is the purpose statement. We're going to do an overview. We're going to talk about scoring in 4-ball, and when you and this is important. This rule is important for us because most of the things we do at the club really basically are 4-ball or a better ball of partners. For 40 years, I've been trying not to put better ball of partners on my, when I put the sign up. I put 4-ball, but I get so many questions. I would always put the better ball of partners in parentheses, but I've kind of given up on that. It's called 4-ball. And now we're going to talk about how you score, and that's important. When a round starts and ends, when the hole is completed, those are very important. They can be a little confusing. And of course, one or both partners can represent the side. You get the player's actions that affect the partner's play. Another one that can be a little daunting to understand perfectly. Then the order of play, and then you have, and because we're talking about match play and stroke play, and we're talking about can players share clubs, and another one, when the penalty applies to one partner or both partners. And really not that easy. That stuff is not that easy, but we'll go over it very well. Everything they have in here makes it much, much easier. Okay. Now we have some modifications, as we say, that came in or that are there that they had to make in 4-ball match play and stroke play because it's just a little bit of a different kind of a format and what we do with scorecards. Now, only one partner need be there to play. Okay. That's why we're not doing 22 because if it's a foursome, then this one doesn't work. Okay, so what a player can and cannot do for a partner. This has changed when the new rules came in. Order of play. When can you share clubs? This one, I never see it done, but you'll see how it works. As we said before, how does a player's penalty, something that player A did, how it's going to affect his partner? Covers either match or stroke play, where partners compete as a side with each one playing a separate ball. And of course, the score for the hole is the lower score of the partners, the one that has the lowest score. Now, here's our little thing here. And I'll let you read through it. And we're looking for the false one. We'll get back to this one later. All right, so we'll keep those in mind and come back later. Here's the overview. Once again, we have repetition to help you understand these rules. That's what the USGA believes in that. And it's a form of play, two partners playing his or her own ball. They're a side. I would suggest that you look up the definition of the word side. That's an important one. That can be an exam wrecker. And a side score for the hole is the lower score of the two partners. In this case, the side are these two partners. Okay? There you go. You know this. Now, these other rules First 20, they apply to this form of play, but they're modified by the following. And now we call this best ball. You don't see this too often, where a very confident individual competes against a side of 2 or 3 partners, and each partner plays his or her own ball under the rules. This is not a 3 ball. This is called a best ball. 3 balls, everybody you didn't get your 4th didn't show up, so rather than having a 4 ball, you play a 3 ball where A plays B, B plays C, and C plays D. A. Everybody has their own individual match. Okay, but this is a best ball. You don't see it too often. Okay. Here's how you score. And a scorecard, which is very important. And you'll see when you have 4-ball stroke play, sometimes a scorecard will come in. You'll see later on in a way that I always, it really rankles me. You get 18 scores, not individually identifiable. And no matter how I warn them on the first tee, they do it. But we'll talk about that later. And then an exception there to 11.2. All right. Now, when both partners hole out, got 2 scores. When only one partner holes out or otherwise completes the hole, and when neither partner holes out. Now, what do we do in those situations? All right. Here we have both partners, and then the lower score is the side score for the hole. Okay, so that side, you'll see the first one there. Whatever that fellow's, I can't quite read that, but I'm sorry, that's Kate. So her score comes down. And remember, the committee brings that score down, is responsible for bringing that score down to the team score. But you'll see that later too. Now, when only one partner holes out, which happens, somebody else has a bad, hits it out of bounds or has a problem, then it's the partner score. And the other partner doesn't have to hole out, obviously. So here we have John gets the 3. That's the team score. Now, when neither partner holes out or otherwise completes the hole, the side obviously does not have a score for that hole. And I've had that happen here in some pretty important things. And what do we do? Well, it depends. In match play, the side loses the hole, unless the opposing side already had conceded it or otherwise lost it in some way. However, in stroke play, what do we got? Well, you got to have 18 scores, or however many scores the committee decides to make the stipulated round, and that's just a trunk slammer there. I don't have a score for 16. I'm gone, or we're gone in this case. Now it's the side's responsibility. These are the things that the side has to do, and then the things that the committee has to do. Now you have to enter the scores, gross scores, on a single scorecard. And in a handicap competition, each partner's handicap must be entered on the scorecard. Must. That's a prerequisite for all forms of stroke play. Got to get if it's individual, that player has to put that handicap in. That's his or her responsibility. And in this, it's both partners have to do it. Okay. Oop. Did I miss one? No, I don't think. Let me go back. Came here a little quickly. Each score must be clearly identified as the score of the individual partner who made it. If this isn't done, then the side is disqualified. And I'd be getting those scorecards with just 18 numbers on them. And I want to throw them back at the player, but I just make them go back inside while they're having a drink and figure out proper scorecard. There it is. And no matter, as I say, no matter how I warn these fellows here in the mountainous region, the Poconos here, they do it this way. Okay, and only one partner needs to certify the score. You only need the one signature. Now, what does the committee have to do? Well, a lot of times this is the partners will do this, but the committee is responsible for checking this and deciding which score counts for each side. And sometimes you do see mistakes made like this. And that includes applying any handicaps in a handicap competition. So you got to be looking at that and seeing where the dots are and are they bringing it down correctly. That is your job as the committee. Now, this gets a little more interesting. If there's only one score there, well, then that's the score that counts. But if they're different, now you got the low gross and the low net score for the hole for this side. And if both scores are the same, the committee may count either score. And if the score used is found to be wrong, the committee will count the other score, and as long as they're the same. And if we may see an example of this where a penalty comes in or something like that didn't know about, and I would recommend, especially for us club professionals around when we're running these tournaments with these four ball, become familiar with the interpretations behind this rule. By now, I know everybody has the USGA app on their phone. Definitely. So read through those. There's a scenario there that tells you what to do in situations where there's a little discrepancy in the scoring. It tells you how to proceed. It's very good. Okay. Now, if the score, once again, if it's not clearly identified, these players always tell me, well, hey, what's the difference? Well, there's a big difference. If somebody did something wrong and now we can't identify what happened, if there's a penalty involved, we don't have anything to fall back on. So that's a DSQ, which I never can do. Okay. Now, there's an exception here to 11.2. Doesn't apply in this. When a player's partner has already completed the hole and the player's ball in motion needs to be holed to lower the side score for that, and then the player, if any person, deliberately deflects or stops the ball at a time when there's no reason, it certainly is not going to be holed. There's no penalty to that person, and the player's ball does not count for the side. I think Ricky Fowler ran. I hate to make a bad pun, but Ricky Fowler ran afoul, forgive me, of this rule, and this was a little bit of a change. Any questions on 23.1 and 23.2?
There haven't been any submitted yet.
Wonderful. Okay, we proceed. Now, when does a round start and end? May seem simple, but it can get a little complicated. And we're going to talk about this and when you complete the hole. Now, a side's round starts when one of the partners makes a stroke to start his or her first hole. Okay, there you go. Now, in match play, the round ends when either side has won the match. In other words, when there are more holes ahead than there are left to play. Now, in stroke play, when the side completes the final hole, either by both partners holing out, or by one partner holing out, or the other partner just choosing not to do it. And that, as you see, it includes correction of mistakes which can be done before the scorecard is turned in. Now, in match play, they've completed the hole when both partners have holed out or had their next strokes conceded, or either side has conceded the hole. Now, in stroke play, side has completed the hole when one of the partners has holed out and the other partner decides not to or chooses not to. Just they already hold out or they choose not to hold out because it could be pointless. Does that make sense to everyone? Question-wise? Okay. Now, one partner may represent the side in all or any part of a round, but there's a few little caveats to that. It's not necessary for both partners to be there or to be present for both to play on each hole. You've seen this happen where somebody's sick or can't make it, and his or her partner plays against the other two. Now, if the other player just shows up late, arrives to play, that partner may start the play for the side only between play of two holes. And that means, in match play, before any player in the match starts the hole, if the partner arrives, only after any player in the match has started play of a hole, that partner is not allowed to play for the side. Now, that's match play. Anybody makes a stroke there, that partner is out for that hole. Now, in stroke play, before the other partner starts the hole, if the partner arrives only after the other partner has started play of the hole, the other partner is not allowed to play for the side until the next hole. Okay? But could walk along and still give advice or help the other partner. And you can take these other actions, which we'll talk a little bit about later, that the partner can take. Now, in a 4-ball match, played in a handicap match, keep this in mind because sometimes we forget this. The player with the lowest handicap somehow is unable to play. You know, we play off the low ball. We always do that. The absent player is not disregarded given that he or she may start play for the side between play of two holes. So you don't just say, well, okay, he's not here. He or she isn't here. I'm going to redo these handicaps. No, the absent is not disregarded. Okay, there's the general penalty. We know what that is. Any questions here? All right.
None yet, Clark.
All right, I'll keep playing. Now, once again, this becomes a little different with the new rules, and it's good. Players are allowed to take any actions concerning the partner's ball the partner can take, and the partner is responsible for the player's action. He'll get the penalty that's going to take. Although each player must play his or her own ball, it says, and you can't say this any better than it's already written here. Player can take an action concerning the partner's ball that the partner is allowed to take, such as they can mark the spot of the ball, lift it, replace it, drop it, and place the ball. We have so many other places where only the player can drop the ball or place the ball. Now, a player and player's caddy may help the partner in any way that the partner's caddy is allowed to help. And it's going to say such as to give or be asked for advice and to take other actions allowed under Rule 10, which has to do with preparing for making a stroke and advice, standing behind, things like that, lining up the players, things like that you can't do. You must not give any help. Obviously, as I said, is that the partner isn't allowed to give. Which only goes, that goes without saying. Now, partners can't agree with each other to leave a ball in place on the putting green to help either of them. You can check back on 15.3 on that. It's the same with individual play. If two players do that, it's going to tell you what happens. Now, obviously, your partner is you. He's your alter ego. He's your alter ego out there. When he does something, you did it for purposes of any kind of breach. And the partner will get the resulting penalty for that. Okay. Now, well, we know the player can't improve conditions affecting the stroke, but can the partner do it for the player? I don't think so. You're walking along and enjoying the scenery, and my partner accidentally kicks my ball, which is plainly visible in the walking down the fairway, or any part of the general area. Then that's going to be a penalty to me. This player is rotating a ball, not marking. So if your partner does that, you're getting the one stroker on that one. Got to mark that to do that. And by the player's caddy. Concerning the partner's ball, that would be a breach if the partner or the partner's caddy had done it. Once again. And if they affect the play of both the player's own ball and the partner's ball, then when we get to 23.8, we're going to find out if there could be a penalty to both partners. Stay with us to find that out. We have penalties other than disqualification. We talk about that. And then there's 3 conditions where the player's penalty also is going to definitely apply to the partner. And this is where it gets a little, from here on out, it gets a little more daunting and challenging. Questions here?
There haven't been any submitted yet.
Right. If you think of any, don't be bashful. Now, and of course, you can play in any order with certain restrictions. You can play in any order that you consider best. Can't delay play. Either the player or his partner may play next. It could be an advantage to do that. Okay, and the player must not continue after the player's next stroke has been conceded if this would help his or her partner. So here we got one. Yeah, that's good. You pick it up for 6, and the partner's putting for 2. Well, if this player hits this now, goes ahead and does it, that 6 is what's going to count. The partner's ball is not. Okay. So yeah, a little known. I would say that rule is not widely known. Now, the sharing of clubs. You can share clubs as long as your side of 2 here, as long as you don't carry more than 14. You can carry them in one bag or more than one bag. I don't, if someone could think of why you would do this, I would be interested to know if there's any kind of a situation where this might help you. Question?
Keep
All
rolling, Chuck.
Beg pardon?
Keep rolling.
All right. All right, now here we go. These get a little, as I say, a little more challenging. We've got penalties other than disqualification and then disqualification penalties. How do we handle these? Now, if a player gets a penalty, it applies either to the player alone or to both partners, and that is called the side. And it depends on the penalty and the form of play. What do we mean by that? Normally it applies only to the player, not to the partner. But here's 3 situations where the player's penalty also applies to the partner. Okay. Except in situations covered by what's going to happen here. Any penalty strokes are added only to the player's score, not to the partner's score. In match play, a player who gets the general penalty has no score. Obviously, he's out of the hole, but that penalty has no effect on the other partner. Here's your 3 situations. When a player breaches 4 points, that's the limit of 14 clubs. That is going to be a penalty to the side. When the player's breach helps the partner's play, and this can be a little subjective, all right, might need a little adjudication. And in match play, when the player's breach hurts the opponent's play. Another interesting way of looking at it. All right. In match play, the limit of 14 clubs is situation. The side gets the penalty, and that is an adjustment of match penalty. So at the end of the hole where that breach is discovered, as we've learned, we're going to adjust the match by ups or downs accordingly. In stroke play, the partner also gets the same penalty. So it's a penalty. It's that 2-stroker there, and we'll have to figure out where it comes and what hole to add. Okay. Now, when the breach helps the partner's play in either match or stroke play, the partner also gets the same penalty. Here's an example which help. There's some examples. All right. Okay, so A and B are playing C and D, as they often do. Very, very, very rarely do you see A and D playing B and C. I don't know why. They don't like each other. A provides the wrong number of strokes he or she has taken to either C or D. All 4 players are in contention during the hole. Side C and D bases its strategy on the information, and one of them makes a stroke. So you can see that by example. Okay. Another example. Player A gets the general penalty under Rule 3.2 for not giving the right number of strokes taken. Player B gets the same penalty because the breach hurt the opponent's play. So therefore, since they've both gotten the general penalty, AB loses the hole. Now, it's never considered to hurt the opponent when a player is out of contention. So when a player, has got the ball in his pocket, his or her pocket, and he or she either gives the wrong number of strokes, fails to notify, that's never going to hurt the opponent's play. Yeah, I had 8. I really had 7. No, since the player's score on the hole will not be relevant, obviously. Now here's something. I don't know. This has always been a lot of misinterpretations about it. A player makes a stroke at a wrong ball. Is not treated. He hasn't helped his partner's play. You hear this. Well, wait a minute. I watched them play. No, he's got the general penalty. Not considered to have helped them. Now, it's true whether it belongs to the partner, any opponent, or anybody else. Okay. Now, we've got these DSQ penalties, disqualification penalties. We got a breach by one partner. Could mean the side is disqualified. When a breach by both partners disqualifies it, and a breach by one player means that only that player has no valid score for the hole. That would be a stroke play. Okay. Now, these obviously, I don't think we need to memorize them, but we can look these up as to when a side is disqualified if either player gets the penalty. Player conduct, playing by the rules, clubs, the club situations, the ball situation, use of equipment. These things, one player does it, side is going to be disqualified. Now in match play, applying handicaps. You got a handicap problem. You've taken a handicap higher than you're entitled to. And in stroke play only, you got the scorecard situations. You got the wrong score that you put down, handicap incorrectly done, practicing on the course before or between rounds. I had a huge one years ago. We used to have a Calcutta. I shouldn't say it so loudly, and that caused great consternation. Now, if both partners get a penalty of disqualification for starting or ending a round, playing in groups. Wait a minute, I want to play with Joe and Harry. Let's just change these groups around. The committee can allow it if they wish, but most of the time they won't. And when you can stop play. Now in stroke play, a side is disqualified if at the same hole, both partners get penalties for any combination of failing to hole out, playing from the outside the teeing area, starting the hole, wrong ball, or playing from a wrong place. Any combination of those. Now, in a breach by one player means that that player only has no valid score. In situations where a player breaches a rule with the penalty of disqualification, the player is not disqualified, but his or her score on the hole where the breach happened can't count. In match play, if both partners do the same breach on the same hole, if both partners breach a rule like that on the same hole, the side loses the hole. Now let's go over this. If your partner we're looking for the false one. The partner discovers he has more than 14 clubs during the round, but you and your partner get the penalty. Both you and your partner get the penalty for the breach of the fourth. That sounds like it could be true. We're looking for false. When a rule requires you to drop, replace, or place your ball, your partner can do any of those things for you. I think so. If your partner causes your ball to move, when a penalty applies, your partner gets the one-stroke penalty. If your partner does it, your partner, let's think about that. If you play a wrong ball, you get the general penalty, but your partner never is penalized, even when the wrong ball you played was your partner's ball. Well, what do you think? Yep, there it is. You were right on that one. Okay, these are the other ones. Any questions now? Penalties other than disqualification penalties. Any questions on that?
No, sir.
A lot to cover, and that does it. That does it. How'd I do there, Alice? 10,
Good
14?
job, Clarky. I always find, I don't know, Rule 23, Rule 22 and 23, those penalty situations, they are hard to commit to memory, and especially in 23, worth looking up if you have a situation at your club that happens. So,
Absolutely, they're brutal.
Does everybody need a couple-minute break? And we can do two things. I'll go ahead and queue up Rule 20, but we can also just take questions and have some general discussion if that's more helpful to folks. But maybe a 5-minute coffee break, Matt, would that work?
Perfect. Yeah, we'll see everybody back here at 10:20, let's say.
Okay, great. Thanks.
All right.
Clarky, I think I'm taking over your screen here in a second, so. Matt, can you hear me okay and see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. We'll go forward whenever you say we're ready. You're the boss.
Go for it.
All right.
Excuse me, Matt, I've got a little box here on mine. It says your screen is still visible to others. Click to resume or cancel your presentation. Should I click that?
Yeah, you can click it and cancel it.
All right. Or
It's just a really small little screen on the side.
Okay. Okay.
Cool. Alice,
All
you're
right.
good.
Now we're going to finish off with looking at Rule 20. And again, any questions about any of the rules that we have or haven't presented over these webinars, please bring them up at the end. We'll have some open discussion. But Rule 20 is just about resolving rules issues that have come up during the round, and also talks a little bit about rulings by the referees and the committee. And we are the committee at our respective facilities usually. So hopefully this will be of some help. Has 3 parts: things that happen during the round, rulings on issues, and situations that are not covered by the rules. Here's our purpose statement. This rule is going to cover what players should do when they have questions about rules during the round, including the procedures, which are very different in match play and stroke play, that allow a player to protect the right to get a ruling at a later time. It's also going to cover the role of referees, who are authorized to decide questions of fact and apply the rules. Rulings from a referee or the committee are binding on all players. Good to know. Get right into Rule 20.1. So players can't unreasonably delay play when seeking help with the rules during a round. I mean, we want them to get things right, but if a referee or the committee is not available in a reasonable time, the player must decide what to do and they must play on. And we want the player to be able to protect his or her rights. And in match play, they do that by asking for a ruling. We're going to look at that. And it used to be called making a claim, but with the new language, it's asking for a ruling in match play, or by playing 2 balls in stroke play. Okay, let's look at match play first. During a round in match play, players can agree how to decide a rules issue. The agreed outcome is conclusive, even if it turns out to have been wrong under the rules. This guy says, hey, I dropped 2 club lengths from the cart path on the last hole. That's right, isn't it? And his opponent says, yeah, that's how I do it. You know, they're wrong, but they're not agreeing to waive a rule because in their minds, they think they're proceeding correctly. So if they agree how to, carry on, they're fine. But if they deliberately agree to ignore any rule or penalty, then we've got a problem. This is what Clark asked about at the end of our last session. Guy says, I have 15 clubs. Opponent says there's supposed to be a penalty, but just take one out of play. Well, now we have a problem under 1.3b1. This is a disqualification situation because it's an agreement to basically waive the rules, and the rules want to deter players from doing this. If a referee is assigned to the match, the referee is going to rule on any issue that comes to his or her attention, and the players are going to have to follow that ruling. We had this come up at the Solheim Cup, the rules workshop that I taught last month or whenever that was. Some of the LPGA rules officials were there, and there was a gentleman from the Champions Tour also in the audience, but one of our LPGA officials was Missy Jones, and she had the ruling with Jessica Korda at the Solheim Cup where the opponent conceded the putt, and it was overhanging the hole. The ball was overhanging, and the opponent went up and conceded it before Jessica had a chance to walk up there and have her, or it was Nelly, actually, it was Nelly Korda, have her 10 seconds. And the official saw it, and so they had to apply the rule. The official didn't have any choice. They have to rule on the issue that comes to their attention, and the players have to follow it. The players can't say, I want to waive it, or no. The referees has to act on the rules, as unpleasant as it may be. All right. For a ruling request that's made before the result of the match is final, if the players can't agree on how to proceed and they want the referee or committee to decide how to apply the rules, whether it's for how they proceeded or what the opponent did, the player can make a request for a ruling. In the old language, it was making a claim. And if the referee or the committee is not available, the player says, hey, I want a ruling on whether fixing aeration holes on the green is a penalty against you. I don't think you can do that. Have to notify the opponent that a later ruling will be sought when a referee or the committee becomes available. In match play, it's important that both players kind of know the state of the match. And so the fact that the one player's asking for a ruling later lets the opponent know, hey, the outcome of that last hole is still in question. Now, we have a timing thing here. We have a timeline. So a player makes a request for a ruling, again, before the result of the match is final, because that's kind of our point of finality. And a ruling is only going to be given if the request was made in time. Have an interpretation that helps us understand what this is. So again, a player is entitled to know the status of his or her match at all times, or that a ruling request will be settled later. So a request for a ruling must be made in time to protect a player from trying to apply penalties later in the match. This is interesting interpretation. So during the first hole of the match, player A lifts his or her ball to check for damage, determines that it's cut, and substitutes a new ball. Player B sees this and privately disagrees with player A's assessment. Player B doesn't think the ball is damaged. However, player B decides to overlook the possible breach and says nothing. They're allowed to do that. However, at the conclusion of the final hole, player A, who is one up, now walking off the green, player B tells player A that he or she disagrees with the substitution that happened way back on the first hole. And they're making a request to the committee for a ruling. This is not timely. They should decide that the ruling request was not made in time. Player B was aware of the facts during the play of the first hole. And so once a stroke was made on the second hole, that little window of opportunity to, ask for a ruling from the committee had closed. And the committee should decide that no ruling will be given and the match stands as played. Okay? Second situation, the player becomes aware of the facts during or after completion of the final hole. Now the ruling request has to be made before the result of the match is final. Okay, so the player becomes aware of a possible breach of the rules by his or her opponent after completing what they thought was the final hole of the match. The player may make a request for a ruling. If the opponent was in breach of the rules, the adjusted match score may require that the players return to the course to resume the match. Let's look at this. All right, in a match, player B wins by a score of 5-4, or so they think. On the way back to the clubhouse and before the result of the match is final, it is discovered that player B had 15 clubs in his or her bag. Player A requests a ruling, and the committee determines that the ruling requested by A was made in time, because that was the point in time where, player A became aware, was on the way to the clubhouse. The players must return to the 15th hole and resume the match, because remember, in match play, having too many clubs is a match adjustment penalty up to a maximum of loss of 2 holes. So the score in the match is adjusted by deducting 2 holes from player B, and player B is now 3 up with 4 holes to play. Okay, when the player becomes aware of the facts during or after completion of the final hole, just looked at that. And if the player doesn't make the request in this time, a ruling will not be given. The result of the holes in question will stand, even if the rules were applied in the wrong way. So this timeline, this timeliness of this request for a ruling is critical in match play. If the player requests a ruling about an earlier hole, it's not that they might not be out of luck. They might still have a case. A ruling will be given only if all 3 of these apply. So we have 3 things that have to happen here. So our little scenario, if I can read this, is while we were playing number 9, someone told me you fixed aeration holes on the 4th green. Is that true? And the opponent player B goes, that's not okay. Like he didn't know. And they're on the 10th tee now. So in this situation, all 3 of these things have to apply. The opponent breached a rule about giving the wrong number of strokes or failing to tell a player about a penalty. The request is based on facts the player was not aware of before either player made a stroke to begin the next hole. And after becoming aware of these facts, the player makes a request for a ruling in time, just in the same timely fashion that we already looked at. What about after the result of a match is final? Okay, and usually when a player makes a request for a ruling after the result of the match is final, the committee is only going to give a ruling if both these situations apply. In most cases, once the result of the match is final, And that can be different for different events. It might be when the results posted on the bracket, might be when the trophy is given out. But anyway, after the result is final, the committee is only going to give a ruling if the request is based on facts that A, the player was not aware of before the result of the match was final, and the opponent breached a rule about giving the wrong number of strokes taken or failing to tell the player about a penalty. And here's the caveat. The opponent knew of the breach, okay? Not only did they fail to, you can't fail to tell about something you didn't know you did, but if the player knew of the breach before the result of the match was final, another term for this is cheating, then there's no time limit on giving a ruling, okay? Interesting little exception after the result of the match is final. We're not going to give the opponent that cheated, let them get off the hook. No time limit in that situation. A great reminder here that in match play, you have no right to play two balls. A player who's uncertain about the right procedure is not allowed to play out the hole with two balls. That only applies in stroke play, which we're going to look at in 20.1c. And this can happen. Players at our facilities, at our clubs, our courses, maybe they don't have a lot of tournament experience, and there's some kind of a tournament going on. And if it's a match play tournament, which, I guess most of us, we do a little bit more of that now, they don't know how to proceed. They can't reach anyone in the shop to ask a question, and they kind of know about this two-ball rule, but they get it confused, and they try to do that in match play. Nope, that's not going to work. What happens in that case, there's some interpretations on that, but they're not allowed to do that. The original ball is going to count for them. Now in stroke play, it's a different situation. And I think I would encourage all of you that work with juniors, college players, whatever, to really help them know this, because we typically don't have a lot of officials out there at our junior and amateur events. But anyway, one of the first key things is that in stroke play, you cannot decide any kind of a rules issue by agreeing. Maybe you play a lot of match play and now you're in a stroke play event and you know that, I was able to, my opponent and I were able to agree on how to proceed when I was playing that match the other week. Not going to happen in stroke play. So if the referee or the committee is not available, nobody's answering the phone in the shop, the players are encouraged to help each other in applying the rules, but they have no right to decide a rules issue by agreement. And any such agreement they reach is not binding on any player, okay? They should raise any rules issue with the committee before returning the scorecard. To protect the interest of all players, if a player knows or believes that another player has breached or might have breached the rules and that the other player does not recognize, or maybe they're ignoring it, you should tell the other player. Again, this is stroke play, and every player in the competition, it's their responsibility to protect the field. Should do this promptly after you become aware of the issue, but no matter what, you should do it before the player returns his or her scorecard. And to not do so, if you fail to do so, that player could possibly be disqualified if they decide it's a serious misconduct. If you can't be Mr. Nice Guy or Miss Congeniality and just, watch one of the other players in the tournament breach a rule and decide to say nothing. Your job is to protect the field. It may be uncomfortable to bring it up, but there's usually a way to say, hey, did you just do such and such? You got to protect not only yourself, but the rest of the field in stroke play. Now, in stroke play, we can play two balls. Matter of fact, it's encouraged. If you're uncertain about how to proceed, can't get a hold of anybody in the shop, maybe there's, it's an event that doesn't have, officials out there on the golf course, you can go ahead and complete the hole with two balls. Now, how do we do this? There's a procedure for this. And I know when I was running events at DuPont, if it was an event of any size, I would try to put a brief overview of it on the little local rule sheet for the day, because it is confusing and players don't, our players don't use this all that often unless they're tournament players. All right, so you're uncertain how to proceed, going to go ahead and play with two balls. This player says, she's in this area. Is it ground into repair or not? She thinks she gets relief. It's not marked. I've decided to play two balls. Player has to decide it after the uncertain situation arises and before making a stroke. And the player should choose which ball will count if the rules allow the procedure used for that ball by announcing that choice to his or her marker or to another player before making a stroke. So we want you to say, hey, before you've made the stroke, I'm not sure what to do here. I'm going to play a second ball. And by the way, I would like to score with the ball that I think this is ground under repair. I would like to score with the ball that I drop out of the GUR. And if the player does not choose in time, the ball played first is treated as the ball chosen by default. So if you don't choose the ball that you play first, the rule is going to choose that for you. If the ball that you drop out of the ground under repair is the one that you play first, whether you've chosen or not, the rule is going to have that be your chosen ball by default. Real important that once you've done this, you've decided to play two balls, you must report the facts to the committee before returning the scorecard. Even if you score the same with both balls and players think, oh, I made 5 with both, it doesn't matter. No, it does matter. Here this player says, I played 2 balls on the 6th hole. Here's what happened. That's the correct thing to do, even if it was the same score. The player says, nope, no problems out there that we couldn't handle because they've made the same score with both balls. Well, guess what? That's a DQ situation if you fail to tell the committee. And the reason why is because you might have proceeded wrong with both of them. And the committee needs to sort this out and tell you what your score is going to be, because you might have some penalty strokes you're not aware of. Now, interesting, if the player makes a stroke before deciding to play a second ball, this rule just doesn't apply. You're not going to make the stroke and then go, you know what, maybe I could have had some relief from that ground under. And you say to the other player and players in the group, hey, I'm going to play a second ball. I think this should have been GUR. No, it's too late. So you can go ahead, that player can go ahead and drop that ball as if they're proceeding under GUR, but that's never going to count. The score with the ball played before you decided to play the second ball is always going to count, but they're not going to penalize you. I mean, the one thing about this rule and playing a second ball in stroke play is we're trying to give the player the ability to play a second ball and get a ruling later, but we don't want to trap the player into an unnecessary penalty situation. Or an unfortunate penalty situation. So that player makes the stroke, then decides, hey, I think I should have gotten a drop here. They announce that they're going to play a second ball. They go ahead and do so. That second ball doesn't count because they didn't announce in time, but we're not going to penalize them for playing the second ball. Just making clear, reminding us that a second ball played under this rule is not the same as a provisional ball. We know that a provisional ball is only for a ball that might be lost outside of a penalty area or out of bounds. Again, and I think David Sable referred to this second ball situation. He actually referred to provisional ball that has not yet been determined its status. The second ball played under this rule and the second ball for a potential serious breach, both of those are in stroke play only. Those TBD balls, they're twilight balls. We don't know their status yet. All right, now the committee is going to have to decide on what the score for the hole is. Player's gone ahead and played 2 balls. The committee is going to decide the score, and this is going to be the process they're going to go through. The score with the ball chosen, whether the player chose it or it was chosen by default as the first ball played, is going to count if the rules allow the procedure used for that ball. Okay? And if the rules don't allow the procedure used for that ball, the one that the player chose, the score with the other ball is going to count if the rules allow the procedure for that ball. This is where the committee has to really sort things out. All right, what if the rules do not allow the procedures used for each of the 2 balls? This is why you have to report to the committee even if you made the same score with both balls. So if the rules do not allow the procedures used for each of the 2 balls, the score with the ball chosen is going to count unless it was a serious breach in playing that ball from a wrong place. It was a serious breach. Now we flip back to the other ball is going to count. But if there was a serious breach in playing each ball from a wrong place, the poor player is disqualified. And I guess, part of the lesson here is make sure one of your balls is played from the original spot. The only time you can't play from where the ball is if you're in a no-play zone on a wrong green. Otherwise you can try to play out that original ball. Just don't choose it. Serious breach by both, front slammer. Anyway, this goes on to say all strokes with the ball that does not count do not count in the player's score for the hole. That was a TBD ball, and we don't have to worry about it. Let's talk about this little internal definition here. Rules allow the procedure used. What exactly does that mean? So it's either the original ball was played as it lies and play was allowed from there, i.e. it wasn't a no-play zone, it wasn't a wrong green. The ball that was played was put in play under the right procedure, in the right way, and in the right place under the rules, okay? And here's our little question that goes with this: rules, issues, and stroke play. We're going to look for the false statement. Which one of the following is false about resolving a rules issue in stroke play by playing two balls, playing a second ball? A player, uncertain whether her ball is in ground under repair, plays that ball and then decides she wants to play a second ball. She will never score with the second ball. That sounds true. Boy, she had to announce before she took that action. A player, uncertain whether her ball was in ground under repair, decided to play a second ball. Before making a stroke, she announced the ball she wanted to count was the one with which she took relief. If the rules allow the procedure she used with each ball, her score with the ball she took relief with will count. Yep, that sounds true. Before making a stroke, the player should announce which ball she wants to count if the rules allow the procedure. If the player does not announce that choice in time, the player's original ball is treated as the ball chosen by default. Well, that kind of looks true at first, but I think if I remember right, we said the first ball the player plays. If a player plays two balls under 20.1c3 and one of them is played under a procedure the rules allow, but the other is not, it does not matter whether the player chose a ball to count or not. The score with the ball played using the procedure the rules allow will count. Okay. So it looks like our false statement is C. And this is a little nuance. This can be an exam wrecker, because if the player doesn't announce, the original ball is treated as a ball chosen by default. No, the ball chosen by default is the one the player plays first. So if they go ahead and take the procedure first, and then they announce and play out of the other thing, again, the rules choose the one by default is the one you played first, not necessarily the original. Okay. Any questions on 20.1? Give them to Matt. We'll head forward here to rulings on issues under the rules. Referees. It's an official named by the committee to decide questions of fact and apply the rules. And the referee's ruling is going to be followed. Now, if some of you are officiating, this part is pertinent to you. The part that's really important to most all of us is being on the committee, because if you quite often are the committee of one at your facility, and or whoever's running the event is, and we don't often have referees at our facilities, but you might act as a referee if you work events, as some of us do. Player has no right to appeal a referee's ruling to the committee. There's Ron Hickman giving a ruling. However, the referee may seek the committee's help before making a ruling or refer a ruling to the committee for review, but they're not required to do so. If you are going to referee and work events, you really want to kind of understand Section 6C. But I will just say, of all the committees I've worked on, working events at every level, if a player wants a second opinion, we always allow that. And quite often, we usually have radios, and you just call. If it's a big event, like a tour level event, you call for a second opinion, and then I typically would leave the area, let the other official come up, kind of start from scratch with that player and go through the, whatever the case the player is pleading for. And of course, the very fact that the player's asked for a second opinion, that other official knows that, you've denied it. So they're going to take that into consideration. I also had times where I just got on the radio and called to confirm something and let the player listen to the other committee members' answer, just so the player would know, because there's certain things in the rules that players look at you like you've got two heads and they want another opinion. And oftentimes you can just confirm that by radio. So we allow that. We don't have to. You can just say, hey, my ruling stands, and play on. There's no referee to give a ruling, or if it's referred to the committee, the ruling will be given by the committee, and the committee's ruling is final. That might be you answering the phone in the golf shop. And if we can't decide at all and we can't get a hold of Mr. Karpus or someone else, It can be referred to the Rules Committee of the RNA or the USJ, and then that decision will be final. This part of this rule is, I think, important, applying the naked eye standard when using video evidence. So if the committee is deciding, this is going to be more if you're probably working at, some of the bigger college amateur events and whatnot. If the committee is deciding questions of fact and making a ruling, the use of video evidence is limited by the naked eye standard. So if the facts shown on the video could not reasonably have been seen with the naked eye, that evidence is going to be, video evidence is going to be disregarded, even if it indicates a breach of the rules. And of course, this happened because of things that were happening at the tour level. And, with these high definition, ultra zoom cameras and stuff, things could be seen that the player couldn't reasonably expect it to see. We've got two situations here, and I think these videos will play.
Here is the picture that people will be talking about tomorrow, the grains of sand that topple over.
So this happened to, I think it was Anna Nordquist at a major championship on the 18th hole. And, those little grains of sand toppled, and she did not see that, and she didn't feel it when she grazed the sand on her backswing. And that was a penalty situation.
And you can see when he took the club back, he definitely took some sand back behind it. Now you can ground the club there. He not only did it once, he did it twice.
This was Mr. Reed doing this this was in a general area, a sandy area. And the video before, that was ultra zoomed in with that camera. And, Nordquist really had no idea. She couldn't feel that she brushed the sand. It would not have been seen. It couldn't be seen by the walking scorer that was standing right there on the edge of the bunker, or by the other players or the caddies or anybody. It was not seen by the naked eye, and she didn't feel it. But here, Mr. Reed, it was very visible. And he also, this one does not meet the naked eye standard of being ignored. So if the facts shown could not reasonably have been seen with the naked eye, that video evidence will be disregarded. At the time Anna Nordquist did this, that was not the case. They used any information that they could get to apply the rules. It was just a question of fact, did it happen or not? And that was a very costly penalty to her at a late stage of a major championship. All right, but this is a good look. But anytime you see these but statements, even when video evidence is disregarded under the naked eye standard, a breach will still be found if the player was otherwise aware of the facts established in a breach. The example here is the player felt the club touch the sand, even though that could not be seen by the naked eye. Players have a very, pretty sensitive feel, and if you could feel it, even though you didn't see it, or maybe you weren't looking down at the time, or there's that little trail left, you did it.
Anna, did you have any idea on 17 that you touched the sand on the second shot?
No, I really didn't. He just told me after hitting my third shot on 18, so obviously that was very disappointing. It's blowing 35-40. I had a 5-iron, and I didn't do it on purpose, so, what can I say? I touched the sand, so apparently I did. I hit a really good shot there, and good shotting on 18. I've been playing really good today, but it's just hard to lose that way, but that's the game of golf.
So she was very gracious about it at the time, and it was one of the situations, I think, that helped precipitate this change to the naked eye standard. All right, when can wrong rulings be corrected? If a ruling by a referee or the committee is later found to be wrong, the ruling will be corrected if possible under the rules, but if it's too late to do so, the wrong ruling is going to stand. We have to have a point of finality, okay? So if a player takes an action in breach of a rule based on a reasonable misunderstanding of a referee or committee's instruction, whether that's during a round or while play is stopped, and the example given is lifting a ball in play when not allowed, there is no penalty, and the instruction is treated like a wrong ruling. Again, we have our committee procedures in Section 6C that goes into pretty good detail about what a committee should do when there's been a wrong ruling. And for those of you that are going to be in charge of events at your club, you are going to be the committee of one, or you're going to serve on a committee as a referee and a rules official, really worth looking at that stuff. In match play, there's no time limit on disqualifying a player under Rule 1.2 for serious misconduct, or 1.3b, which is deliberately ignoring a known breach of the rule or agreeing with another player to ignore any rule or penalty they know applies. And this may be done even after the result of the match is final. We saw that again, term for that is cheating. There's no time limit on that. for when the committee will give a ruling with a request, when a request is made. We already saw that. It doesn't happen very often. And in stroke play, normally a penalty must not be added or corrected after a stroke play competition is closed. And that's when the result has become final in whatever way the committee has decided to do that. Could be when the trophy is given out or the results are posted. And in stroke play qualifying followed by match play, it's when the player is teed off to start his or her first match. That's the point of finality. But a player must be disqualified even after the competition is closed. We have 4 scenarios here. If they return to score on any hole, again, this is stroke play, return to score on any hole lower than actually taken for any reason other than failing to include penalty strokes that they didn't know about, they didn't know they had. If they knew before the competition had closed that the return scorecard showed a handicap that was higher than the actual handicap, and this affected the number of strokes used to adjust the player's score, that's a DQ penalty. Sometimes when we're taking a percentage of handicap, it doesn't affect the number of handicap strokes that they get. And knew before the competition closed that he or she was in breach of any rule with a penalty of disqualification. Again, this is cheating. Or they deliberately agreed with another player to ignore any rule or penalty they knew applied. Again, the rules really want to deter this in stroke play and in both forms of play. Actually, agreeing to ignore the rules is not only is it not encouraged, that you're going to go have a trunk slammer for that one. Committee can always disqualify a player under Rule 1.2 serious misconduct after the competition is closed if something comes to their attention. Okay, that was for stroke play. Any situation not covered by the rules should be decided by the committee. And to do this, you need to consider all the circumstances. These are those gray areas where, it's not clear cut. This is what they pay us the big bucks for. Treating the situation in a way that's reasonable, fair, and consistent with how similar situations are treated under the rules. And quite often, that's where our interpretations will help us. They'll give us guidance. They won't spell out every situation, but, they'll give us some guidance on, here's one end of the spectrum, here's the other. And of course, we're always somewhere in the gray area in the middle when we're on the committee. But we want to try to treat situations as consistently as possible. And that's what we have for Rule 20. Any questions on that? On the committee stuff, there's one thing I know for us when I was running events at DuPont. There is a point if the committee makes an error, makes an administrative error, and you would look this up under those committee procedures. There's really no time limit on correcting a committee mistake. So whether it's adding the scores up wrong, applying the handicaps incorrectly, one situation we had that wasn't when I was there, but happened relatively recently, deciding, in a playoff, it's a stroke play event. And if it's, individual stroke play, it's not recommended to do the playoff in a match play format by using the stroke allocation table. So there's a way to do if it's a single hole or 3-hole aggregate playoff in stroke play, there's a procedure for that and how you apply the handicap. So if we do any of those things wrong, one time I had the final results, I left out a team in the ladies member guest. That was a real, boy, you want to talk about a day I wanted to run and hide. But you can correct those. The committee error, administrative errors can be corrected at any point, even to the point of, taking the prize money back and redistributing it. I did not do that in the ladies member guest, but we just made sure the other team got acknowledged and got the same prize. So keep that in mind. If it's an administrative mistake, we can always fix that.
Hey, Alice, we did have a question come in. In a college golf competition, is it appropriate to have the host coach and or the host head professional at the facility be on the committee?
Sorry, I just muted myself. That's a great question. I would definitely say the host pro should help serve on the committee. And as far as the host coach, I'm just starting to help out with our high school team here. So this is my first year I did a couple clinics for them last year, but I'm going to learn a lot more about high school golf and how events are run and managed and who does the rulings and whatnot. Definitely would be appropriate, I think, for the host pro to serve on the committee. And I'm hoping that at the high school level, there's some kind of committee structure with not necessarily the coach that's hosting unless they're a highly qualified rules official, but maybe there's a little committee that appeals can be made to or something. So I would hesitate to let the host coach be the rules person, just knowing how limited some of their rules knowledge is.
Right.
Good question. I'm going to find out more. I'll report next year.
All right. Any other questions?
Thank you, everybody, for participating. Clark, I would agree with you on the 4-ball, Rule 23. Every year, it seemed that I was running an event, somebody would come with that scorecard that had 18 scores with perfect penmanship, usually in a Sharpie marker, and they were just straight across the card and not attributed to either player, and had to, like you said, send them to the bar to figure that out, or have them sit there at the desk and figure that out.
Yeah, they become highly indignant when you ask them to.
Well, they think they're helping you. They think that they're saving you time and energy by doing that, and it's not the case. And it doesn't matter that we spell that out in advance. I always put that little reminder and try to announce it as they're heading out to their respective tees. But yeah, that's a good one.
Well, great. Well, thank
Good
you,
job,
Alice and Clark, for all your time this off season, and thanks everyone for attending all these rules webinars. These are far and away the most consistently well attended webinars that we host every year. So we'll look to do more again next year.
Hey, and one thing, everybody, just to be thinking about, and Clarky and Mark, I talked to the two of you about it too. I was talking with David Stabler the other week. We had done our rules thing, and we just touched base afterwards, and we're talking about what to do to really help our pros at the club level with the rule situations that come up during the important events, like the member guest or the club championship or whatever. And he said, if we could come up with, because he recognizes that these presentations are, they cover more than the 90% of the stuff that usually happens. If we could all come up with the 20 or 25 most common rules scenarios, and it could be as simple as, the guys are playing in the member guest and one of them boots the other's ball and they try to look it up in the rule book and can't find it because in the rule book, you can't find anything about kicking a ball. It could be something as simple as that, or it could be some of these more involved ones like, okay, I did this to my partner's ball, who gets the penalty? But if you guys have anything that comes up during the season or that you've had in the past, send that to one of us on the committee and we will try to put together a top 25 hits, if you will, or a top 20 hits, and do a little presentation on that, on the things that happen during these high profile events time and again. Other than that, that's all I have. Matt, thanks again for all your help with the IT stuff and especially with the communications and getting the word out.
No, our pleasure, and thank you. And Alice, if you want that message to go out to the whole membership, just let me know, and I can put something together for that hit list.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I think that would be helpful, kind of the top 20 or 25.
Perfect.
Just a quick comment. Thank you, Alice and Clark. You guys did a great job. Although I do look forward that maybe we get back to in-person presentations again, maybe next year.
Boy, I sure hope so, Mark. I feel encouraged. This whole thing has been daunting to say the least, but I think we're getting there, and the in-person ones are definitely more enjoyable and easier for us in terms of not worrying about internet connectivity and all that stuff, and get some good back and forth. So hopefully that'll be in the works in 2023. Plus, we're going to have a revised code in 2023. I don't think the revisions are going to be super major. I was talking to David about that too, and he said they're basically on one page from what he's seen so far. So I think some of our clarifications will be included in the rules for 2023, but we will have a revised code to talk about.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, thanks again, everybody. Hope to see you all soon.
Yep. Thank
Take
you,
care.
everyone.
Bye-bye.